a casual dress, and this belongs to the food nymph family. It is not representing any particular insect, although it is stimulative of a number of them. In the water, it can look, the sun shining on it, a little bit like a minnow. It can look like a big dragonfly nymph. Fact is, the range is almost endless, and the nice part about it is it can be tied in any size. Anywhere from I've tied it for steelhead on a number 2, and I've tied it on number 12s for small trout and small streams. Procedure is just the same as on the muskrat and on the Fledermaus, except that this one is going to be the first one tied solely out of fur that's going to have a tail. So you have to put a half hitch there while you cut a piece of fur for the tail. This is off a muskrat back. You get a nice little bunch there. You strip out about half of the dubbin, otherwise you're going to have too big a rear end on it. Should look just about like that. Put it in a little bit on your own side, otherwise it's going to roll over on top. And be sure you anchor this down good and tight. That tail wants to be about half the length of the body. And you're going to have half hitch this because I'm going to have to spin the noodle. And we start right here and we start pulling a little bit at a time. Keeps getting longer and longer. Finally comes out about 1.5 inches long. And then you roll it. Roll it hard. You want to get that just as tight together as you possibly can. Now this one should come out about right because we've got a good taper on the backhand and a little bit less in front. Lay that on the side next to you. Throw your loop and make the loop a little longer than the fur so you've got a little latitude to work with. Lots of glue, always. Now you see, we get this down where it's nice and loose. And don't try to wind these with your fingers like I did with the burlap, because this tends to pull apart when you do that. You got to get a hold of it so you've got a good tight hold on the thread with the pliers. Start tightening this one up. Now be sure you unwind it before you tie it off, because if you don't, you're going to have a big lump there. That's ready for the hacksaw. And we want this one good and rough. If you think this isn't really rough, you put it under a 10-power glass and look at it. There'd be 1,000 legs sticking out there, and when that goes on the water, every one of those starts wiggling. That's about the time you get a strike. Now we got to have another big bunch of fur. We're going to put a miniskirt on this, and just like we did on the Fledermaus. Only you need a bigger bunch than you do for the tail. Try to get those ends there nice and even. Lay it on top. Throw it kind of a loose loop, and then you start pushing it a little bit. Let it spin around there. It goes right around by itself. The reason it got its name was this was about the time that the late Bing Crosby married Kathy West, I think, or Kathy Grant. And he was always represented as being so casually dressed before that. And in fact, what they was trying to say, he was dressed a little bit sloppy. Well, this nymph is going to look very sloppy to you, but it doesn't detract a bit from its efficiency. One observer, one time at one of my shows I was doing, he made the remark, he says, I try to do that the way you picture it in the book, but he says that one demonstration of you doing it there in person, he says, is worth 1,000 pictures. And that's exactly why the reason we're doing this video. Then you flip it back, and you give it a collar of ostrich, just like we did the muskrat. 4 ostrich flew. Wouldn't hurt if you had 5, but 3 isn't enough. Now we got 4 strands. We're going to twist it up into a regular chenille rope. One fellow asked me, he says, why do you put that on there? I said, well, that covers up all of the little mistakes you made there in tying that head. There. Now, we iron it out a little bit. When it gets that second coat of black, it'll be nice and shiny. And believe me, this thing here can be tied in any string from a 1/0 up to just as small as you can get it on a hook. And they will all catch fish.